sun hours, for example, but also outdoor comfort. So that's a big topic. But it's all based on real weather data. So that's why I think we start with a very simple exercise in this first video. So every Ladybug script needs this component here, Ladybug. It's a component where so it's written in, Ladybug is written in Python, and if you go in here, you can actually read the code, and it stores all the important classes to actually run the scripts in here. So you always need this component, and it also creates a folder inside your C drive where it stores information. What else do we need? We need weather data. And how do we get weather data? So you can maybe we go one by one. So so the first one is actually, it's a tool which helps you to download weather data. I will show how that works in a minute. This second tool is my weather data file import component, which basically makes the weather data readable, and it will give you an output. So it will read the weather data and give you an output for all these components, for all these sections here: latitude, location, temperature. Another component we need is this one. So that there are two different ones. If you have a file on your computer, you would use this component. So it basically points to a folder on your computer and opens the file and feeds into here. That would be one way to do it. If you have a compatible weather data file, what we will do is, though, we will link a weather data file online. So basically what we do, we with that download component, this will point us to a map, and from there we will copy a URL, the weather file URL, which we feed into here, and then will be split up in these sections over here. So this component just stays. Then now we need some component which turns this download on, which activates this download, and we can do that by just double click here and say toggle. Toggle, yeah, and we can use this one, and by default it's set to false. It has two values, true and false. It's basically on and off, yes or no, and we can put this here. And if we now double click here, Ladybug automatically opens your browser, and it goes to the Ladybug Tools weather data map, and you can see all these points are the locations for the specific weather data, and the different colors represent different providers. For sure you can read more about that online. Let's pick a random one, for example Barcelona. If I click here, I can either download it or I can copy the link, and we will copy the link. So I just click here. Now it is a bit weird, nothing happens, but it's already stored. And now I go back into my script, and in order to now feed the URL into the weather data import component, we need something to write, to feed basically the address into here. And the way you can do it is by adding a panel. You could also get it from here. Panel, this is panel. And you can feed it in here, and the orange means there's nothing happening at the moment. So if I double click in here and go out, then my weather data is stored. Now it takes a while. So what it does, it actually downloads this file and stores it onto your computer. And then I have my weather data for Barcelona. Now I can feed this in here, and as soon this goes gray, and when I click on it, it turns green. That means it successfully read the weather data. Now I can actually look at the data by adding another panel and link these things here. Let's see what it's in read. README hourly weather data for Barcelona, Spain is imported successfully. Okay, I can look at latitude. This is the latitude. The location gives me a, yeah, it gives me the exact location. This is the location of the weather station, by the way. It gives me the temperature per hour. You could go here. So this is all, this number represents the hour of the year, and and then the temperature in Celsius. Dew point temperature. Then, for example, humidity in percentage, wind speeds in meter per second, sorry. The direction, radiation, direct normal radiation, yes, and so on. Coverage, that's also interesting. So this gives you for each hour like an indication on how much the sky was covered with clouds or not. There is another output here. That's a lot of people actually don't see that. The statistics file, and if you go here into so you also have a component for statistics, because inside this weather data there's already, so it automatically calculates some interesting statistics for you. So if I use this component here and I plug in the stat file, then again with a panel, I can actually, for example, see, what is the hottest week in Barcelona. So basically this would be August, from the 3rd of August 1 a.m. to the 9th of August until midnight. So from 1 a.m. until midnight, so every hour for this whole week. So basically this would be the hottest week. That all gives me already information that I might not want to go there during August. A normal week would be in October. So October could be very interesting to travel there if you don't want to go swimming. A cold week, so this is end of January. The first number is always the month, the second is the day, and then you have the hour. Extreme cold week. So you can actually get a lot of information out of that already. Now, to finalize this small exercise, I just want to show how to use one of these visualization tools, which are actually very simple to use. So you could, for example, go into the windrose. You can have a look on the windrose. So it looks very intimidating, but actually it's quite straightforward. So on the top you have it says north, and what it means, it's if, for example, your plan is not northed, it's not it's not rotated to the correct north, then you could import a line in Rhino, and that would represent the north, and the whole weather, the whole data or the whole script will then follow accordingly. What you need, but then you see this is like an underline on the front and at the end. That means these are, so it means that you need this information, but it has a default. It has a default, and then there are somewhere you will need information when there's only the underscore at the front. Then this is information you will need to input in order to run that script. If the underscore is on the end, that means it's an optional input. So for example here, the hourly wind direction, we can go into that, we can use this wind direction component and add it here. And that will feed the direction for the hourly wind direction into here. What we also need is the wind speed. So the wind speed goes here. And then everything else is actually optional, except for, except for the run it button. I will go one by one. So annually, hourly data, when you hover over this component, you will always see a description of what you might need or what you need to input if you want to input. An optional list of hourly data for the imported, for the import EPW, which is the E plus weather data component, component, which will be overlaid on the windrose. I have never tried that, but let's leave it out for a while. Then you can have a analysis period. At the moment, it will calculate the whole year, but I will show it later. Conditional statement. I think this. So for example, you could say, I don't want to see the wind speed below a certain speed in the visualization. The center point basically allows you to place the diagram on a point within Rhino. Well, so there are many more options. Scale is to scale your windrows. Then you have legend parameters. We can talk about another time. Then you can bake the information, and the last point here is to run it, and that's what we're gonna do now. So we need a toggle. So just copy this component and it's always good to put it on false. If you have a big calculation, then so in this case this is gonna be okay, so we can plug this in and it will run. So now the Rhino freezes for a moment. So we have run the calculation. You can actually see that there's a output here. It created a mesh, some curves and a legend, and you will, as default, it's turned off, so it's not visible, which is a bit annoying. So you will not see anything here, but if I right click here, if this is selected and I right click and I go on preview, then you actually get this windrose. So it would be interesting to see maybe a different one. Let's get one. Taipei, and you can just go here. Try another one. This is Lisbon. That's quite an interesting one. So yeah, it gives you a windrose, it gives you also the wind speeds and some extra information. So especially for like an architecture project, it could be interesting to know where and how the site is exposed to wind. So now, if you're happy with your windrose, then you can actually bake it. You can use the same toggle here and bake this one. If it's not true, it will automatically bake all these lines and meshes into Rhino. So if I close it now, it's my windrose is gone, but it created a folder system here with Ladybug, Windrose, Lisbon, and if I turn it on, I have my data. And there's a bit of a bug here. I don't know why. This basically gives you the wind speeds, but it seems like a bug. I normally don't use that. Just delete this. I think it's overlaying the different directions on one point, which makes it a bit weird to read. That feels like a bug. I mean, you could also manually change that if you want to read both, but I normally do this because it's more like showing just to give a graphical understanding on where the wind is coming from. So Grasshopper, although I closed it, it's not gone. Still here. I just started it again. So one more thing, I could show the analysis period, and then I think for that video, I think it's already enough information. So if you want to show the windrose for a particular period of time, then you can plug in a period node here, and by typing period, and it gives you this list of possible tools, and one is the Ladybug analysis period. That's the correct one, and I can plug this here. In order to keep it from running the whole script when I just input one of these things, you can either go on spacebar and then temporarily lock the whole script, or you just turn that off, because what it also did, it also baked the whole thing again, which we might not want. So it baked the thing twice. So I could take this and delete layer. Yes. Okay. So I have my original bake here. Now let's make a bit more space here. Normally what I do here is to add, there are different ways you can do that. You can actually type in set a data item. You can say 12th for December, for example. Then if you're hovering over this component or this slot, then you see 12 as the value. But I like to have a slider, so I take a slider from here. Or again, you can use slider. You can the search function, number slider, and if you click on the slider text, you could give it a name, month. Then we only need numbers, and the minimum is 1 for January. The maximum is 12 for December. Okay, so it says month, and it has my months. Can plug this in here. Now I can copy that. Day. I can say here the first. 31. day, and I can leave the hour, because normally it always takes the first hour of the day, and then for the end of the period it takes the last hour of the day. Same it does with the same hour of the day, and then the same what it does with the day is use the last day of that month. But I can be, of course, more specific. Can go into here, month. I want to have, let's say I want to calculate the wind in spring. So that's March, April, May. March, April, May. And it's already set to the 31st. I can also, of course, put it in here. And I could also then input the hour. Well, let's do it. So, I think here I can use a 0 and 24. Let's check the default value. Default value is 1. Okay, it's the first hour, so this needs to be 1 at least. Okay. And copy. '24. Let's check. Yeah, default is set to 24. Now I can run it again. This time it's faster because it had less data to deal with. Let's check something else. Let's check summer. That would be six to 8. Yes. Yeah, so it looks a bit different. The scale bar always adjusts to the highest number. Just to be cautious about that, because sometimes it could look misleading if you have several windroses next to each other and they have the same kind of color range, but actually they have a different range in reality. But yeah, so it means like in summer it's more shifted to the west than the north. Okay, I think that's it for now. We can come back here again and talk about the other options here. See you in the next episode.